Hello, podcast lovers. Thank you so much for coming back. I'm your host, Žana. And today I am so thrilled. I have somebody here that I'm so proud of just from human to human, but I'm so excited for this conversation. Nick and I, we met over LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is one of the most amazing communities that is out there to meet incredible human beings. And Nick, first of all, I know that you're so extremely busy in your life, and I'm so honored and I'm very grateful that you took this time to be here and be on my platform and speak on your private and business accomplishments, which are so many, and I can't wait to dive into them. But please, I thank you so much for being here. Hi.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, it was really amazing that you just reached out on LinkedIn. I love that you were that bold. I love that you were that real. You were just like, hey, can we chat? And I love that. I love that initiative that you took and the openness of spirit, of heart. Like, that's really incredible. So thank you. And I know too that when you bring somebody onto your podcast, it means something. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much because I truly feel, every voice and every story has an impeccable light. And even though we are not light going through these stories that we're sharing, we're still meant to be light and meant to be light workers in this planet. And I truly believe that you're one of them. And I'm so excited to really, have this conversation with you because I'll tell you honestly, when we connected and you shared certain things of you, I felt it really set deep with me for a few days, and I
Mm.
really had to really digest it for a moment because I could not imagine having to go through what you went through. And for that, I applaud you because it really takes a strong, strong soul to be like, you know what, I can do this. It's raining like crazy, but the rainbow is there. So I'm gonna go and get it. So yeah. But with that being said, I would love to kind of like dive deeper into where did Nick start? Like where is your beginning and how did everything really started for you? And what was kind of like one profound thing that really, yeah, that really changed you for life in a sense.
Yeah, I grew up in first rural Montana, which being a gay child in the
Mhm.
70s and 80s in rural Montana was rough. That was
Mhm.
not an easy time to be queer, to be different, to be anything other than a cowboy. And so I had this like feeling of not being enough just from the get-go.
Mhm.
And I think that in many ways, by being raised in that environment that was very restrictive and when I talk small town, I'm talking 1,500 people that both of my
Wow.
parents were from. So we
Mhm.
knew everyone in town and everyone knew us, you know? There was, which is good. And there's good aspects to that too. Let me be very clear about that. There's like values, there's like community, there's wonderful aspects that I've taken into my life from that, but also everyone knows everything. It was really like intense.
Mhm.
Uh, and we moved to Michigan, thankfully, when I was 12, 13, because I was this artist kid. I had such artist desires. We lived across the street from a dance school teacher, and I would go and I would sit and I would watch the ballerinas. And finally, the teacher said, Nick, get up, come join us. And that was a big deal that I was this boy who was dancing in Montana, right? And I got teased mercifully, bullied mercifully for that. But we
Mhm.
moved to Michigan, thankfully, and Michigan was a tad more open, still small town, 12,000 people instead of 15. So, that's a big step up, right? That's a huge step, but a more open community in many ways. And I found myself immersed in a theater community and found, a home there, a community
Mhm.
theater that I found home. But I also found there trouble, to be perfectly honest. The turning point you asked really for me was that starting at 12 years old, I was being sexually abused by a director of the at the theater. And that for me was the beginning turning point. I didn't even realize that it was abuse, of course, right? Like I didn't realize
Yeah.
that's what I was going through. I truly thought that I was in love with this human and that they loved me, and this is how they showed their love. I didn't know that I'd been groomed. I didn't know any of that at the time. But it was a massive, massive turning point in my life because everything that happens after that was related to it in a way.
Mm.
At 17 years old, I couldn't tell my parents. Obviously, I didn't feel like I could tell my parents. I knew my father would kill him. My father would absolutely have killed this human being. So I knew that was that Montana. I'm telling you, my dad was a cowboy type, right? I knew. So
Yeah.
I hid this secret for years and years. We went deep real fast. I just realized.
Yeah.
We hid this. I hid this secret for years and years, and
Mm.
it took its toll. It was also the height of the AIDS crisis, and I knew I was at my senior year of high school. I found out that the person that abused me, that they had been involved with somebody who had AIDS. And so for my senior year of high school, and this was, when AIDS was a death sentence, I
Mm.
would go to the mirror every day and I would look at my body for lesions because I knew that if a lesion came, that I would die.
Wow.
But I was too scared to tell my parents about it. I couldn't get a test because this was back when you had to have parental permission to get a test, an HIV test. So I lived with this secret, multiple secrets, and I spent years of my life just sort of lying to everyone about everything at a very formative time.
Mhm.
And so I think that in many ways affected so much of what came after, including my relationships, including my
Yeah.
decisions, life decisions. I
Yeah.
think in many ways I ran away as much as I ran to other things.
Yeah. And when you brought up, that aspect, living with a lie, I think it's also living in fear, right? Like how horrendous is that for somebody that isn't even full grown mentally, because we grow and we evolve. And I know that we hit a certain part when we hit a certain age
Yeah.
accordingly. I mean, we always evolve, we always grow, but like how horrendous is that to not only keep a secret from anyone and anything that would want to help and protect and support, but also live in fear,
I
living
live
in fear that what is this going to happen if this were to happen, if I would see a leisure, what would that do mentally, and just constantly in that fear of not knowing an outlet, where to go and what to do and how to handle if it even hits you, because nobody in this age, no matter where you are from, where you were born, what culture you are almost incapable to make life decisions like that on your own, because you just don't have the capacity just yet.
Yeah, and I realized later on that I was in fight or flight,
Right.
always, a
Right.
constant state of it.
Yeah.
I used to shake. My body used to physically shake. And I didn't even realize that till I was in my 20s. And a friend of mine, Kate, turned to me one day and she said, "Oh my gosh, Nick, your shaking is gone." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You always shake." And I realized, oh, yes, I was vibrating in that fear state at all times, at this very
Um,
heightened state of being. And it wasn't until I began to get, obviously go through therapy and yogic practices and really diving into spiritual practices to heal the trauma that
right.
that level of anxiety that had
Could calm down.
manifested began to calm down.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really, I mean, again, first of all, to even have that deep of courage, to even wanting to go and get therapy and wanting and knowing internally that something is off with your own temple, wanting to understand it better, and for you just to take that leap of faith and just go and practice and try different tools. And obviously, thankfully, you found the tools that really worked for you the most. I know you mentioned meditation, I know you mentioned yoga practices and diving deeper into spirituality. I i don't know, is it safe to say that those practices literally helped you to save yourself?
Those practices saved my life. There's no question about it. I think, and therapy, a combination. It was a combination
Right.
of cognitive
Sure.
talk therapy. It was a combination of things. But those practices definitely were life-saving because that was the first trauma. I had a
Mhm.
secondary trauma. So it was like stacked trauma that I had, multiple layers. The
Right.
first being wasn't seen as a child in rural Montana. The second being I was being, and so consequently, now I can look back and say, oh, I was searching for love outside of my family and I found it in the exact wrong person,
Right.
right? Third level of trauma was I went to college, my first year of college, and I was dating somebody, my first boyfriend. Uh, and he came home one day, um, came over to my house. We weren't living together, but came home to my home one day and said, I just been diagnosed with AIDS. You need to get tested. Now, I knew I was okay because we hadn't done anything unsafe. Because after that experience I had with the abuser, I was like, no, it's going to be safe. Like there was I was, because I'd gotten by that point a negative test result, thankfully. And I was like, this will never happen to me again. So I was very, very safe. I knew I was okay, but he was diagnosed. And that very day, he drove to Florida and he committed suicide. So that was this next level of incredible trauma.
Mm.
That's all before I'm 19 years old, all of what you've heard. So that at that point, I completely shut down, to be very
Mm.
honest. That was the shutting down. It was like as if a wall went, boom, slam. And there was a
Mm.
wall of bricks around me.
Mm.
And I had really a hard time not only connecting with others, but connecting with myself. I truly just put up these massive protection walls. And, when I moved to New York a few years later, and my peers, were all forming relationships and were settling down and were moving on with their lives, and I realized I was so guarded and protected. I wasn't dating. I didn't have sex. I just felt like I couldn't even barely connect with myself. I was angry
Yeah.
all the time. And I
Mm.
think that when you said, how did you like have that courage or to go to therapy? It was like, how couldn't I have?
Yeah.
Because I was so just sad and angry and I had no way to express it except internally. And it got
Mhm.
to that point that sometimes you get in your life where it was like, it's either going to go one way or the other. Either I'm going to kill myself and be done with this,
Right.
or I'm going to dive in. And there was this spark inside of me. And I don't know what this is. And I don't know. It's like, I don't know why I had it. I
Mm.
don't. But there was something inside of me that I would lay in bed at night and like think to myself, should I just end it now? Should I just end it all? But there was
Mm.
this spark inside of me that said, abso-friggin-lutely not. You have so much to offer and so much to give to this world.
Mm.
I don't know where that came from. That spirit somehow coming through, right? Like I don't know where that came from.
Mhm.
But there was this part of me that really wanted to not only live, but wanted to thrive and help people and create art because I was an artist, like I said, at heart. And in many ways, it began to inform my art, right? Because I was dancing and all that physical trauma that had been trapped inside of me, that was one of the
Right.
ways that it released out was through
It came
dance.
out.
And
Yeah.
I became a professional dancer. I was a professional dancer for many, many
Mm.
years. And that was
Mm.
the outlet for the releasing of a lot of that trauma.
Mhm. Yeah, and I truly believe, that little spark was really the strength of your soul.
Yeah.
Like honestly, if I would have to point fingers, I would almost say it's that. Obviously, it was God too
Yeah.
speaking through you, through your own soul, but I feel like it's really that spark of like, because I know how that feels, when you are at a spot in your life where it just doesn't make any sense. Not necessarily that you try to end it. I didn't have the courage to do that ever, but I
Yeah.
certainly had so often thoughts in my mind in a period of my lifetime where I just didn't see the purpose anymore. Everything was just so caved in and everything was so dark, and I couldn't logically figure out a solution for myself. Oh, this can maybe be this way, or because everything just caved in. So I can
Mm,
so relate to that feeling of in different aspects of life, but
sure.
the feeling of like, what is the purpose here? Why do
Yeah.
I need to go through this? There's
Yeah.
no outlet for this. There's no solution for that. My reality is completely messed up. I can't anymore. Like, and so I feel like when that spark, that voice, that fire, right, really comes up is like our soul, because we make these contracts with our soul before we come here. That's at least what I believe, and our
Yeah.
soul is
I
like,
do
no,
too.
I want to do this. Like, I want to go through this because I need to get something out of this, because I haven't gotten it the last time I've been here,
Yeah.
or something like
Or
that.
however
you
many
know
times, right? Yeah.
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 Around that same time, a friend of mine threw a book at me. They threw Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, which is, very basic 101 sort of spirituality in a way, but it's what I needed at the time.
Mhm.
It was like I needed something to grasp onto that wasn't biblical because of being gay. That was difficult, right? I'd been shamed in many ways around that. So I needed something that I could grab onto and read. And the fact that it was like, you can heal your life, I was like, oh, okay, I can do something. I can
Right.
do something here.
Mhm.
And that was like the beginning of that spiritual path, that journey for me that went far deeper than that sort of
Of
surface
course.
level. But I needed that opening. People will sometimes poo-poo a book like that or say, oh, well, it's spiritual bypassing. Da, 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 da. I'm always like, okay, hold on. If it had been more than that at that time, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. There's a point for everyone at every time.
Oh my God. And I so can relate to that too. It's so true. It's so true, because sometimes even when we have conversations like that and we have something to say, now I learned that my opinion really need to be asked for, because I know my
Mm,
human body type and I know my human design. So I learned that on my spiritual journey. And so I think it's really that, sometimes we're not able to handle if all these tools would just come all of a sudden. But I feel like this is why I love God so much, because he's so amazing. He's so amazing in that, in throwing the right person in and the right tool and the right circumstance, or taking stuff away, or just, he
yeah.
like knows. And so, and when you said, that outlet, becoming a professional dancer, I mean, you just wasn't a professional dancer on, and I'm not down talking any professional dancers, but I mean, Broadway, hello. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's big, for you to even, through that pain from the little boy that started to watch, because I think that's really where the love for dance originally was created from, to now be on a stage, not only looking in the audience, but you're the one performing on the stage. It's kind of like full circle,
Yeah.
that it almost was like having to go through that in order to really get to the bridge to really do this a deep part of your life, because I know you did so many more things that I want to hear about after that. But like, I think it's such an amazing bridge, of like from really struggle to just on the path to success, just breaking free from something that was kind of like a stronghold, like that.
And I think Bridge is right. I think that's the
Mhm.
exact right metaphor for it
Mhm.
because I was doing the Radio City Christmas Spectacular with the Rockettes
Mhm.
as a dancer. There's male dancers in the show, and the director had us wear these bear costumes and doing a Nutcracker ballet. I know this sounds crazy. You're in bear costumes doing a Nutcracker ballet, but I'm doing this bear dance. And you have to jump off a trampoline onto the stage and do these split leaps. And I'm doing it, and it's Christmas Day. And I'm in this bear head, and tears start rolling down my cheeks and the inside of this bear
Mhm.
costume because I was like, oh, this isn't the artist I want to be. This isn't my life. This dance had been the bridge. Dance had what got me there. And I remember I went up to my dressing room table, and I took the bear head off, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror and saying, this is not your life. You're going to change it. And that weekend, not dissimilar to you, like just reaching out on LinkedIn. This is before that. Obviously, this is old school. I got and picked up the phone and called everybody I'd ever worked with, and I was like, "Hey, I'm directing and choreographing now. I'm moving on from dancer." And had I direct and choreographed? No, but I was telling everyone I am that now. And one of the theaters said, "Hey, well, we just lost a choreographer. Why don't you come to Florida and choreograph this show?" My first professional job, 2 months after, 2 months after deciding I was going to do it, and within a year, I fully transitioned. It's like that alignment piece too, that like that bridge brought me to where what I was supposed to do with my life in a way
Yeah.
that I hadn't
Yeah.
really. I wasn't always,
Yeah.
dance is always a part of my life. I'm back to it. I'm taking ballet again after all these years. I love it. It's like a
Love it.
first love. That's
Yeah.
my true first love in many ways is ballet, but
Yeah.
not necessarily professionally, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's that puzzle piece, like it needed to happen. Like that being a
Yes.
dancer on Broadway was absolutely a big puzzle piece in your entire canvas of life where all the puzzle pieces are. And it could have not been missed. And when you said like you decided in that moment, literally told yourself in the mirror, this is not my life. This is what I need and this is what I'm going to do. And no matter what, it will happen for me because I am confident enough to believe, at least in my own dream, regardless of how unrealistic it might be to anybody else out there. But I know what I know for me, what I want
Mhm.
to be true for me. That speaking stuff into existence by being so firm with the universe of like claiming it and commanding it in your own authentic power.
Yeah, I mean, that was my manifestation. There was no question about it. I owned it. Owned
Yeah,
it. Before
right,
anybody could even question it, I owned it
right.
100% fully. And of course, therefore, it came into existence because I also was in alignment, right? I was doing
Mm,
what I was meant to do in the world in that, at least at that time. Now, there
yeah,
was another piece to this is that there was like these two things happening simultaneously. I also at the same time it was healing, right? Going through this entire healing process while owning my identity as an artist. I was also in this healing process, particularly around my body. Part of
mhm,
leaving dance too was I needed to leave dance in order to heal my body issues, which sounds kind of strange, but when you're a dancer, you are looking at yourself in the mirror all day long.
right.
You're in classes, you're looking in the mirror, they're pointing. I'll never forget one of my teachers came up to me and pointed at my belly. And I was 165 pounds at 6 feet tall, pointed at my belly and said, You might want to lose 5 pounds right there. And
Mm,
woo, what that did to your self-esteem, to your body image, plus with all that trauma that we were talking about earlier on, I
yeah,
began to experience this a dysphoria with my body where I didn't see what other people saw. I saw it as hideous, gross, awful. So now I can look back at pictures of myself and be like, you were so cute. What the hell was wrong with you? Right. But
right.
at that
Yeah.
time, there was this massive disconnect with my body where
Mhm.
I felt I was hideous,
Yeah.
absolutely hideous. And part of that was dance, part of that was trauma, part of that was, like I said, the early days of growing up and not feeling seen and feeling invisible. It was a combination of things that brought together this dysmorphia, body image
Yeah.
dysmorphia, which manifested itself in lots of different diets and different workout routines and trying to build and bulk
Mhm.
up at the same time because I wanted to be a big muscle guy. Going to steroids. I tried steroids. I was
Mhm.
really in it for several years during that period.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, that when we find ourselves in situations where we're not truly rooted in us first and in our creator or in anything else that we believe is above us, higher,
Mhm.
it becomes very simple to follow opinions and to be swayed by other people' opinions, especially if they are in charge of specific positions that
Mhm.
you try to collaborate with, that you're trying to become a part of, or that you're trying to gain some information from. It becomes very easy to be like, well, this person said, and they have something right because they have this position. They're doing this for so
Yeah.
and so many years, and so that unrootedness without that self-love and self-respect and self-confidence within, which really nobody can give you that. I can tell somebody 1,000 times per day what I see in them. But if they don't see and tell that to themselves, and it doesn't matter who says what, and it goes both ways. Now, if somebody would tell you something, you would completely see it from a different perspective of like,
Oh,
"Well, thanks for
yes,
sharing, but have a
absolutely.
great day," you know, like,
Yeah,
"Thanks for
absolutely. You know, it's
sharing,"
interesting
but
because there was this great juxtaposition there happening
yes,
of there was this part of me that again, that little voice that was so confident and like, I am going to create this, I'm going to do this. But then that
right,
other part of me that was struggling so desperately. And
right,
they were at war with each other for quite some
internally,
time. Yeah. And
right.
it was really, you know, many years later, well, I began to practice yoga and I began to dive deeper into spiritual practices that some of that healing began to take place. After being the director of those first musicals, I got a job as the artistic director of a regional theater in Oklahoma City. So I moved to Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma at that time, there were only two yoga classes a day. This was the early
Mm,
2000s. Two yoga classes a day. And one was at 9 a.m. and the other was at 5 p.m. Well, I worked. I couldn't go to either one of them. So in my backyard, I built a yoga shanty. I got like one of those sheds that you can get at Home Depot, but I put down a hardwood floor and I had the flowy curtains and I put, and but I was just doing like videos, right? Like DVDs at the time, I think it was, of like
yeah,
Rodney Yee. I was like trying to
yeah,
emulate Rodney Yee in these videos. And I was like, I really should learn how to like actually do this, right? If I'm
mhm,
gonna do it, so I decided to take a month off and I was really burnt out from my job. This was like several years in. And I went to a yoga teacher training program and I'm sitting in a meditation, a deep meditation, and I heard this voice that said, "You don't need to take a month off. You don't need a yoga shanty in your backyard. You need to quit your job." And I was like, "Whoa, hold on."
really?
But this job has health insurance. Like I was like, "Oh, this is a good job." But I also knew that I was not in the right place. And I knew
Mm,
that I still had these dreams of going back to Broadway, but
mm,
in a new form, in a new way, in a new me,
yeah, you're
ultimately.
right, the new edition.
And yeah, and I thought I was had been really doing the work on myself, right? I was like getting that like almost spiritual cockiness that you can get, right? Like I was like, I'm doing it. I'm so right. Like I thought I was the shit. I was like, I got this down, right?
Yeah.
And I did leave my job. It took a year, but I listened to that voice and I
Mm,
went back to New York and started producing shows on Broadway. And one of the shows I was a producer on was a show called Memphis. And fast forward, we get nominated for Tonys. I'm sitting in the fourth row and Bernadette Peters comes across the stage with her long hair and she's so beautiful and she's got the envelope and they announce the nominees and we're waiting and she very slowly opens the envelope and I'm like, come on, say it, say it. And she says Memphis. And everyone around me erupts, hugging, excitement. And I had this moment where the first thought I had was, oh my gosh, thank goodness my investors are going to get their money back. And the second
right.
was, this is it.
Yeah, yeah.
This isn't how this is supposed to feel.
Mhm, mhm,
Oh my gosh. And,
mm.
I had somebody like tug me, like, go to the stage, go, you've got to go, you got to get up there. And I remember it was like people say it's an out of body experience. It was like walking, it was like slow mo. But the whole time it was like the head was going, this isn't how this is supposed to feel. You're feeling numb. You're not feeling any joy. You're feeling
Wow.
nothing,
No connection.
no connection.
Mm,
And in that moment, I was like, oh, you did the surface level of work on yourself. Oh, you got some real stuff to work on, Nick. How very interesting. You thought you were through, you cocky son of a you know what?
right,
That like
right.
you really need to dive in. And that is when I then really dove in. I took some time off. The joy of having a hit is that you have some income, and I was able to travel and able to like dive into some more serious study of myself and of spiritual practices. And because like I said, I thought I had gone through those layers, but the well there was deep of trauma and
Mhm.
of body shame and of honestly shame of just who I was, period. It was layers and layers and layers of shame.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like that feeling of like, when we think we have a title, right? Or when we think we have an award or whatever it might be that is so highly looked at in society,
Hmm.
that will make us feel, or that will make us something, right? And
Yep.
I'm not disregarding any work that obviously clearly was put in
Nope.
creating this, because the work speaks for itself. But I can appreciate and I can so respect that you're saying that, it didn't make me feel nothing. And then to have the self-realization because of just being so honest and authentic to your own self, without the bullcrap, without the sugarcoating it, without the, but this isn't da-da-da, and this isn't da-da-da. No, you know what? This is not. And here's why. Just to have that real truthness within your own self, not because we need to share it with the world, but just that self awareness of like, wow, I now know really that I haven't done anything, because now my real work starts. And
Yeah.
all of this was probably, like just pre work in getting to the next level of really being ready to now seriously hone in and bang these things out that just like a red string just follow in every area of life. Like, because once trauma is not, and I'm not the person that says when you have trauma that it will ever feel like you never had it. I think it will always be there, but there's ways how you really can heal properly the wound that caused,
Yeah.
or that was the consequence of the trauma, by
Yeah.
really diving deeper, you know?
And that is what I did. I mean, I think that I
Mm,
realized also in that moment, I wasn't even yet 40. I was like 37 years old at the pinnacle of my
mm,
height of career success, all of this, that it was just bottom as well. It was like
mm,
at the same moment I realized it was at the top and the bottom. And
mm,
I realized that I was the little boy, the best little boy. I was the best little boy trying to make something of myself so people would see me. So I,
definitely.
could be seen. That's
Mm,
really what it was, that whole journey there was about for me. And then I realized, oh, but you don't want to be seen like that. You want to be authentically seen.
yeah.
And that was the shift ultimately, that it was
Mm,
about the authenticity. And so in that moment, I was having these authentic thoughts, like you were saying, but I wasn't sharing that with the world. Out
right.
externally, I was walking through the parties and like living oh my God, this is amazing. But internally, it was, this is awful. So it was this really, again, a juxtaposition of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really profound, and I think really when we, simply said, when we allow ourselves to be really authentic in the way that we really are, it almost is, it's so simply said, but jumping over that, like, can I really be, am I worth, do I really take my birthright to just be who I was seriously created to be, and speak my truth in a respectful, kind way to whomever I speak
Hmm.
to, regardless of what the consequences, regardless if you say, oh well, you have never been like that. Well, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. I appreciate it. It's no problem. Thanks for the ride up till this point, and I get it, but we just simply don't vibrationally match anymore. But thank you. I wish you all the best versus prior. But wait, look, let me explain to you. Let me show you. This is my point of view. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you. And all of this extra energy that I know I certainly invested in my life of trying to just prove to people
Yep.
that I'm just what I'm really after, versus now, like, there's nobody needs to prove anything to nobody. All you really have to do is allow yourself to live the way you really feel that makes you happy. And I feel like, when we look around society, so little do we talk about the feelings that we're supposed to feel when we walk inside of a room, when we
Yeah.
walk inside of a function, when we collaborate with specific people. Like, that feeling matters. And we've been trained for so long to disregard that, because hey, listen, if you speak your feelings, you might not get the check. You might not sign the
Mm.
deal. You might not get the client. You might not even be with the guy or the girl that you like so much. Like, what crap is that in a sense? You're all you're doing is you're creating a fake life and you're drawing these energies to you that are not in alignment with who you are, because I truly believe what we are in here, that's what we attract. And the minute we're like, you know what, I think I'm good. I think I'm ready to be me right now because who else is better than being yourself? You know what I mean? Like but it's
Nobody
a
can be you
challenge.
better than you, that's for sure.
Right.
Right?
But I think it's a challenge, especially when we have these life examples that are horrendous and horrific to go through. That's not an easy thing for somebody that is a young child, even being in such position, being afraid to speak to his own parents because he knew the consequence. You are so smart already in that age and so in tune, actually, that you knew when you speak on this, hell will break loose. And I don't want to get my parents into trouble, nor do I want to cause anything, even though it's the wrong thing to do for me. And I think that's the key also, not putting other people's needs above your own if
Yeah.
they really truly are hurting one.
That was a massive lesson for me of
Yeah.
codependency ultimately, but of like
Yeah.
taking care of everyone else before me.
Yeah.
That's a bit of what I learned early on, and that manifested itself in my partnerships and my relationships and my business partnerships. And that's been a journey for me
Yeah.
of learning that lesson for sure. Because
Yeah.
yes, when you put everyone else in front of you, whew,
I mean, what's the outcome? Seriously, what is the outcome? Not being internally fulfilled, not feeling valued, not feeling seen, not feeling heard, not feeling acknowledged, and all constantly after the search of a compliment, after a search of
all of it,
validation, all
the
of it. For
validation,
what?
all of it.
And for what, really, in all honesty? And I know me and you can say now, for what? Because it's so
Well,
simple now. But
now it's
be
simple,
then, now
right?
it's simple. But in that time, it's not simple at all because
That time it wasn't simple.
listen, I'm depending on this. I'm mentally, emotionally depending on this. I need a validation from you when you're codependent on something or someone.
Well, and in many ways, it was the way in which I survived. I was, like I said, I was in fight or flight survival mode for years, probably until that moment at the Tonys, to be perfectly honest. I was really in this like, I'm gonna make shit happen. I'm gonna do well in the world. I'm gonna be validated. I'm gonna be seen as a survival technique, and it worked because I wasn't dead, right? So it was actually really helpful until it wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
until it was no longer helpful. And and then it became a liability. And then it became, oh, I can't live like this anymore. So I have to find a new paradigm, a new way of being rather than doing.
Yeah.
And and the interesting thing about that is that when I made that shift, then things started to come towards me without me pushing. Then projects started to come towards me that were more in alignment. I decided, you know what? I want to move, shift. Maybe I don't want to do another musical. Maybe I want to do a documentary, and a documentary, boom, documentary film came towards me of about fibromyalgia, which is chronic pain syndrome. And then I thought, oh, well, I want to tell my own story of this body dysmorphia and the abuse. And okay, well, that's interesting. Well, what if I now do a documentary about body image? And and then I did a film about Alzheimer's. Like I began to like expand my artist in a way that was actually probably more in line with me and with my truth and all that I'd been through than what I had been doing when I'd been trying to push, when I'd been
Yeah. And I
trying to
also think,
make it happen.
yeah, and I also think you just expanded your energy. Like
Totally.
you just expanded it to the point where it's like now it's not even chasing anymore. It's simply attracting because I
Yes.
now really know what I am to me first, how much I value me first,
Hmm.
not because of selfishness, not because of egotistical reasons, not because of any other reasons other than I am grateful to have been given these lessons. And I'm so grateful that life did not happen to me, but it happened for me in order for me to really now see the light and therefore attracting these things by simply thinking about them, which is really the law of attraction in all honesty, you know?
Totally.
It just flows because now everything is just so okay, that's what you asked for. No problem. Here it is. It's coming. Just me and you were like this, and now it's like everything that really makes sense and alignment and energy wise will simply come. And if it doesn't, now I, at least in my life, take it as a sign as okay, I don't think it was in an alignment. So I'm not even does it bug me a little? Maybe I'm a little bummed out for maybe an half
Depends.
hour. Sure,
Yeah.
but like it's okay. Thank you. I accept it, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I think because, and I don't know if you feel the same, but for me, it's that it's now like from a place, and people say this, but I didn't really get it until I really embodied it, which is that now it's an act of service. It's like it
Mm,
comes through me if I am to be the channel or the vessel, not me trying to make it
right.
in my ego. Right? If it's not meant, if I'm not the one, if I might have an idea and maybe I'm not the one to bring it into the world, and that's okay. Or maybe it'll
Mhm.
happen 3, 5 years from now when I'm ready and the world's ready and there's a right alignment here, right? So I've moved out of that place of that making it and having to being a place of allowing and surrender to that
Mhm.
shifts all perspective.
Yeah, because we're not working anymore out of a need, having to prove, wanting it to work, needing it to work. Because if it doesn't work, it means this and this. If I don't accomplish that, it means this and this.
Yeah.
It's more
What does
like
that
now,
mean about me, right?
right,
Like
right,
exactly.
exactly. And how exactly. And so now it's more like it's not a need anymore. It's just a simple request of like this feels good to me and I think this is really what I would like to do, period.
And I've also realized that there's a part of me that now, you know, turns the spotlight back on others to help guide them through this journey,
Yeah.
right? I'm at that
Yeah.
place in my life now where I've become the mentor, I've become the wise one, right? And I say I'm not wise, but you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like
Yeah.
the hero's journey, I'm now the guide, right?
Yeah.
Rather than the hero. And that's a really, and that's age, that's age, that's life experience, but it's a really beautiful place to be in to be able to turn that flashlight on and say, okay, here's the path, take a look, in a way that I maybe didn't have or that I wanted. I didn't necessarily
Mhm.
have that guide, or I had to find out that guide the hard way versus somebody that was nurturing and loving and kind and was showing as best they can. Because of course we all make mistakes, but
Course, yeah, yeah. But I think again, I always think of these examples as if it did not really happen the way it did happen, I don't know if all the things really would have came the way they did come. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Like I think all of the failures and the
absolutely.
tribulations and the struggles, they were so needed to happen for oneself, just for oneself to really get the opportunity to number one, find truth within oneself, but also understand where all that is really coming from and where we're coming from, who we are created by, like whose children we really
Mm.
are, and without all of those steps, I don't know if we would ever, because I know now your latest project, right? And I'm so excited about the movie that and I feel like that was really something that kind of was that really like one of the big drivers for you really to create this fantastic movie that you're involved with right now. Was that kind of like one of the I don't say last stepping stones because I know we're going to see so much more of you, but like a current Nick journey in the moment that like a stepping stone
I
for
think
Body Electric?
I think Body Electric what is definitely a stepping stone of sorts. It's another bridge, so to speak.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
but I feel that way about all my creative projects I've come to realize because one builds on the next in a way,
Yeah.
or shift. It's like shift shaping. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to explore this part of the human experience, which means I'm
Mm,
exploring that part of me, right? The
mm,
beauty of the work that when you do it like this is that you're exploring humanity, and by putting that mirror up, you automatically are exploring those parts in the darker and lighter parts of the self, at the same time
Mhm.
if you're doing it right, right? It's like art is healing, or is the healing the art, right? Is the art healing you, or are you healing through art? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
Right.
Body Electric came about because I was turning 45. Um, and I was looking around at my youthfulness and what in a society, particularly gay men, a certain sect of gay men especially, but in gay male culture, you are sort of looked on by your body, what you look
Mhm.
like. The physical attribute is the first thing, your beauty. And
Mhm.
youth is very much celebrated, not dissimilar to Hollywood with women. Youth is very celebrated. And here I was, 45, and basically on the downhill. And I was looking around thinking, well, what's my place in this world, this particular community, now that my body is fading? And that was sort of the question that I set out, was like, why do we why do we bully each other like this? Why do we speak to each other like this? Why do we look each other up and down and size each other up? What brought us here?
Mhm.
And does the entire LGBTQ population feel this way, or is this a particular gay male thing? And at the end of the day, of course, it's body image is universal because we all have this vessel. We're all in this body. We are a spirit in the body, right? But we all
Mhm.
have a vessel. So of course there's an experience there that we all have a relationship with our body. But what I really wanted to look into is, why do gay men have such troubling relationships with their body? When I read a statistic that of the eating disorders, over 40% of them are gay men, despite being 3% of the population. So that was like whoa, okay, I'm not alone here. Let's
Yeah.
explore why this particular community has this affliction and what that means. And so that was
Yeah.
really the
The
impetus for the
driver.
film and the driving force behind it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's again, I think that's the best thing that we can do, just educate, really, because I feel like through all your projects, and through your entire career, I feel like you've been always an educator. You got educated and you got mentored, but then you also took on mentoring and educating through your own life stories, but also through things that you found helpful for you. And I think really, regardless of what project we're creating, and even to having to have the means, having to have the drive, the capacity, mental capacity, the ideas, the creativity to create such things is is so incredible. And only because of that, I think like it's such it's worth celebrating every single day, because so many of us, we don't use our true creativity because we're so stuck in certain things, again, because out of fear, or because out of, I gotta keep this job because, like you said, it had healthcare. I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure so many humans out there are really forcing themselves and being so chained to certain circumstances of life because it's scary to do the things that you did. You know what I mean? Like, it's scary to just break out of your norm and overcome, your the pattern of like the safety net, and to then not only break out of it, but then also find success in it, not only for you, but people around that actually get to enjoy these projects too, you know and find themselves, even if it's just one sentence, because that's really how I feel about my podcast too. When I started, I was like, if me or a guest just says one sentence that could be
Hmm.
heard by somebody, that could literally make a difference in that moment and that decision making process that they're in, and the guest and I, whoever said it, can be an impact on that, then I have to do this. Because trust me, I was never saying, I'm going to be a podcaster and yay. And I was crapping in my pants. I'm like, who is going to hear this? Who's going to come
Yeah.
to my show? Who I'm going to connect with? And, once I really decided, I want to do this because I know this will help people to keep sanity, to keep in peace, to have
Yeah.
authentic, real conversations where it's not about what can I sell you, or what can I present that you can sell your product? But it's about us. It's about humanity. It's about people finding each other again on any kind of level. You know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure maybe a story like yours, similar parts of it, there's people in the globe that experience that. And
Of
maybe this
course.
story will just be so impactful on somebody to really be like, oh my God, when he said that, I'm going to break out of my norm too, because this isn't really what I feel. And so,
It's funny to me that you said I was an educator
yeah,
because my mother would tell you that the part of Montana that I didn't talk about early on, this is very full circle, is that I would do two things. I would gather the neighborhood kids and I would teach school. And I had a blackboard. On one side, it was the school that I would teach class. And then I would flip it around this blackboard and it would be the backdrop for my show. And then I'd make all the kids in the neighborhood perform in my shows. So all the way back then, I was educating and creating these shows with kids. And we're talking when I was 10.
yeah, yeah.
So
That
you
can that,
you
that
are who
shows
you
you that
are,
you
right? You are who you are.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. That just shows you that he knows who you are. He created you for a purpose with all
Yeah.
those amazing internal lights, and it's really
Yeah.
up to us to use free will to decide what routes we're taking in this journey of life, right? But I mean, in the end, he gives us all the tools. I mean,
Yeah, God came through and anointed me with these tools for this particular time. And whether or not this is, you believe that this is the first or second or third journey, people as a kid used to say, "Oh, you're such an old soul." And my
yeah,
response to them always was, "That's because I got a lot to do." And so that's interesting. And now I would, sort of rephrase that, which would be, "That's because I'm here to be."
yeah, I love that. And that's so true. That's so true. Man, this was This was such a great, wonderful conversation. I'm so truly grateful to have met you, and I'm so happy that you agreed to respond to my in your face LinkedIn message, because truly from all the stories we shared together in that conversation that we had, I really felt like there's many parts of journeys in our both lives where I related to you and your
Mm,
story and your pain, and to have this now come full circle and have this amazing accomplishment and share this is wonderful. I congratulate you on your Tony Award. I congratulate you on all of your accomplishments, business, but more so personal. you know I truly pull my hat from you. I speak a lot of respect for you. Out Your journey is not an easy one that was given to you, but look at you now. You're
thank you.
beautiful, and
Thank you.
and and I'm proud of you. It's like, man, Body Electric. I'm so excited. What's next? Like I'm on this Nick journey now. I'm like, what's next? What's happening?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm back to educating right now. I
Okay.
don't have a next project. People are always like, "What's your next project?" I'm like, "I don't know
Mm.
yet." I'm sitting
Yeah.
and I'm sitting and allowing it to come to me rather than me chasing it. And I'm
Mm.
educating. I'm working with people to speak on stages, and I'm working with them to share their stories. I'm working as a
Mm.
consultant to help people share their
Mm.
stories because it's not just my story that needs to be heard. There's, you know, so many stories out there. I have this
Mm.
vision, I call it the ripple, of a million stories told through the ripple. If I tell one story and you tell another and another and another and it inspires, like you said, somebody to make a change in their life or the impact, it can ripple and
Mm.
ripple and ripple, and it can be a million ripples from the one story. So share your
Agreed.
story, share your story, share your story.
Agreed. Yeah. And I'm happy that we explored yours today a little more.
Thank you.
So thank you so very much for coming. This was really you dropped so many great golden nuggets, and thank you for being so authentic and raw and allowing me to be a part of your truth.
Thank you.
Well, podcast lovers, another great one. So, as always, if there's maybe something you guys have to share, if there's maybe something you would like to chime in or open up yourself about, my mic is always open for you. But until then, stay rooted, stay grounded, and always stay connected to love, the strongest force in the universe.